Hey everyone, we've got a new pitch website, pitchpodcast.fm. Comment on your favorite episodes, get all the latest news, and discuss the podcast with us. Pitchpodcast.fm. If you become a subscriber, you'll be able to access real pitches and ad-free episodes, watch member-only live streams starring us, your hosts, and ask questions we'll answer in future pitch episodes. Join us at pitchpodcast.fm and help us bring you more great content.
Welcome to another episode of Pitch. I am Angel.
And I'm Leah St. Marie.
That's not a question. I am Angel. And today we have a very special guest, a person I've known for a very long time, a good friend of mine. We've got Dana Ledoux Miller. She is a writer, producer of Samoan European descent who has worked in TV and film for the last decade. Her credits include The Newsroom, Narcos, Designated Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland. That's right. Kevin Can Fuck Himself, Lodge 49. She also co-created and ran Netflix's limited series Thai Cave Rescue in 2022 and is currently co-writing Disney's live-action adaptation of Moana. She is a graduate of the University of Hawaii at Manoa and co-founder and board chair of Pacifica Entertainment Advancement Committee, PEAK, a nonprofit dedicated to improving representation for Pacific Islanders across entertainment. Dana, welcome to Pitch. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I feel like you were laughing.
I am laughing. I was laughing, but I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because I'm happy to have someone on the podcast who I've known for so long. I've known you over 20 years.
I would say 25.
Wow.
It's been 25 years. So we went to the same high school. And I actually graduated before you were there, but my surf friends were like the older brother of your surf friend, and we all kind of like were friends and surf party friends first before we even had
surf party friends. Yes,
Yeah,
that's the right summary.
So I'm reading all of your achievements in the last just 10 years alone, and I'm super proud and super tickled. And so I am laughing when I'm reading that, but it's laughter of pride.
Well, thanks. And thanks for having me here today.
Yeah.
I'm excited to chat.
I just want to point out that your friendship can rent a car.
It's old enough to rent a car.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Perfect.
Does it have a credit card though? Does our friendship have a credit card?
It runs on love.
There we go.
Aw.
There we go. So welcome, and let's just jump right in. What are you working on right now? What was having you what had you in a panic at 4 a.m. this morning?
Oh, I don't know if I want to admit what had me in a panic.
Broad strokes, generally speaking.
I'm working on the live action Moana adaptation. And I'm also working on a Disney animation project at the moment that has not been announced fully. So
very cool.
Yeah, it is. I've never worked in animation before. It's a very different process.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to ask how, but that's a very detailed answer. So you've got 2 feature projects you're working on right now, or is the animated not a feature that you can say?
I can't say anything about I can't get into specifics about the animated, but I have the feature project, and then I've got some other stuff in development as well. But it's kind of on the back burner.
This is amazing. I'm like so excited for my friend to be on such huge things.
It's been a really wild experience. When Moana came out in 2016, I definitely did not think that I would be a part of telling her story 7 years later. So that's been really cool.
I listened to your interview on Tremendous Talk, which is a great podcast that people should listen to. And you have something that I'm going to call the Moana moment. Can you share that with our audience? Because that's pretty powerful.
I think you mean when I first saw it. Yeah, okay. Definitely. So Moana came out in 2016, and I saw it. When I saw it, I was 6 months pregnant with my first kid, and went to the theater, and the lights go down, and the music comes up, and the first words are Samoan. And it was the first time I had ever heard the language of my ancestors on screen, but not just on screen, in like a Disney animated movie that millions and millions and millions of people were going to see. And I immediately started crying. And, the movie continues, and I get more and more emotional because I realized in that moment that this kid, whoever this kid I was carrying was going to enter the world, a different world than the world that I grew up in, that there would just be new possibilities for stories to be told. You know, he would be able to see someone like our family on screen from the moment he was born. And that was just not something that ever felt realistic or possible growing up. And it was so moving because I also realized in that moment that it would mean that I could tell different stories as a writer, that people would have a new understanding of what it means to be a Pacific Islander just because Moana existed in the world, and that there would be a new shorthand walking into meetings with executives and wanting to tell stories about Pacific Islanders. I could be like, yeah, like Moana. Like having that kind of shorthand is so important in this business, especially when a movie is so successful. And so I knew in seeing Moana and seeing someone that looked like my cousins and my family, and that the world would be different. Is the long way of saying that. But I definitely didn't think that it would ever come around to me in this specific way. So when I was offered the job, I screamed out loud on the streets of Toronto by myself. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone. So it's been really, really special to be a part of her story. My dad is a Samoan chief, and she sings about being the daughter of a village chief. And when I was like making my deal to be on this movie, I would listen to that song over and over, and I felt so connected in a way that I'd never had on any project I had before. Like, it was like meeting family, like coming together to tell the story of someone who felt like she was a part of me.
And how did you get that project? Were you lobbying for it? Were your reps putting you up for it?
Nobody knew about it. It was a total secret
Okay.
for a very long time. And so I had been, I think I had been in the mix for an animated project about her a few years ago. And so I think my name was kind of in that world, but they reached out to me actually to see if I'd be interested. And then I met with the execs, and then I met with I'm co-writing it with Jared Bush, who was the writer on the original Moana. And so I met Jared, and I would say we hit it off. But really what happened was, like, I dropped my iPad, then I dropped my headphones, and I was like trying to have the Zoom meeting with him. And I was just like, you saw, I was the disaster that I normally am. And I was like, oh my God. But turns out that's like really spoke to Jared's heart. He thinks that's the funniest part about me. And so my goofiness won him over. And now we've been writing together for almost 2 years, and it's one of the best writing partnerships I've ever had. I love writing with him.
So you've been working on this project for 2 years now, in part because of the strike and...
Yeah,
Okay.
because of the strike. So I think I came on in June 2022. So like a year and a half.
Wow.
But then, everything was delayed because of the strike.
Is that the longest period of time you've spent on a project, even given the strike took out most of last year?
No, I think Thai Cave definitely was the longest. So we sold Thai Cave to Netflix, my partner Michael Gunn and I, like just a couple of weeks before the first COVID lockdown. And so COVID really delayed our start date shooting that. So that was a little over, but even then that moved pretty quickly. So I think we were from sale to air about 2 years.
Do you have a preference now that you've run a show for Netflix and now that you've been on a Disney live action feature assignment? Could you say you have a preference, or are you two in the middle of something
For
to
like
that?
TV or film or
Yeah, like what do you like?
um I like the pace of film. I mean, there has been a little more like there's more time, I feel like. I guess it always depends on the feature that you're working on, but we actually were able to like take the time to dig in and really build out the drafts that we wanted to turn in. I mean, TV moves at just such a rapid pace that if you don't have enough lead time to really like, I am a, I don't know how to describe it. Like I am a researching kind of writer. Like I would say most of my time as a writer is spent before I start writing the script. Like I really spend a lot of time like thinking about character and like thinking about the world and um way before I ever like start writing on a page. And so TV, if I don't have enough time before I get started on a TV show to do that, then I feel super rushed and like kind of off my game. So I liked the film aspect of like having a little more time to really think things through, but I also really like TV. So I don't know. I just like am a glutton for punishment.
Well, it sounds like you are having wild success in both arenas, so why not find, the good things in each?
Yeah, I mean, I like the control of TV. I like control.
Yeah.
Fun fact about me.
No, you know.
No, I like control. And in TV, as a showrunner, you get to have your hand in every single element. I think that has been great for someone like me. It's been a learning process in the feature space of just like having to let go. Once you turn things over, it's
Yeah.
not the same. Even with amazing collaborators who have brought me into the process, it's still a bit of a grieving process of being like, okay, I did this thing and now you get to shape it and mold it, which has been difficult.
Especially on such a huge scale. Like Moana is such a huge project. You're like one very important cog. You're still like a cog. You're not the
Definitely,
architect, right?
I'm a little cog, yeah, and in a very big wheel. But it's also cool to see. I do love the collaboration of, film and TV. So it is cool to see how people interpret and reinterpret like things that, I was just like sitting in my office here imagining, and then to see it come to life in a whole new way is really incredible. Especially when, there is a big budget and the possibilities seem a little endless. Whereas in TV, it's like the one thing I like about TV is because you don't have the luxury of time, you just have to make decisions and like make choices really quickly, which sometimes can be really fun, but it doesn't have that same, you don't have that same ability like in this feature space that I'm learning to just kind of explore. So I like both. All this to say, I like both mediums for different reasons.
I think there's this power to a showrunner that a lot of our audience who are newer writers don't know, which is a showrunner can greenlight. Like if you attach a showrunner to your pilot and they love it, then they get to have those connections that they've built that they can pitch to. So I wrote this mafia thing and the production company is like, you need to find a good female showrunner because that's the thing that's going to light a fire under everybody else.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
can
Did
you
you find
talk
one?
can you yeah, not yet. We're looking, we need one, so maybe we should talk. Can you talk a little bit about what makes a good showrunner? Because you said list listening was one of the things that you learned?
That is a great question. I I think being a showrunner is an impossible job for one person. I think that's the thing that I learned the most. Like I was really fortunate in Thai Cave in my first shot at showrunning that I had a partner, and a partner that I trusted implicitly. Like we've known each other. We were writers' assistants together on the Newsroom season 1, and we are friends first, and so we were able to really be honest with each other and also share the load in a way that um, really made it feasible. But what that taught me, I mean, that it was still, even having a partner, it was still too much work for one person. And so the I have so many thoughts. I'm sorry. There's my hesitation is only because there's so many thoughts about show running. Um, One is that it's too much work, and so I do think that there has been this tendency lately to take creators of pilots and then partner them with an experienced showrunner, and
Yes.
I think that it is a good thing. When if you had asked me that like 8 years ago, I would have been like, fuck that. What do I need a showrunner for? But I'm glad that it took me a long time to become a showrunner because I learned so much going up through the ranks of like a writer's room, but also having worked in production. I started in production as a production assistant. Um, and like understanding the ins and outs of what it takes on day to day to make a TV show was invaluable. Like once I actually became a showrunner, and you're asked as a showrunner to guide the creative process and create a story that is compelling, full of characters that are dimensional and full of life, and at the same time your other job, which is equally as important, is to manage hundreds of people and millions of dollars and to make sure that the train never stops moving and that you're appeasing everyone from executives to making sure that the production assistants are being treated properly. Like there's just it's too much. Um and so I do think that if, studios are going to buy scripts from people who haven't done the job before, that it is actually a good thing to partner them with somebody who has that experience that way, partially as a mentorship thing, so that, you're not selling a script and then like thrown to the wolves of like suddenly asked to handle everything all at once, but also just because I think it's too much for one person to take on. So sharing that load is really important.
You're like a dungeon master for 8 different games at the same time.
I think I understand the reference.
Yeah, wait,
but
what is,
Oh
who
wait,
just revealed
but I don't
themselves as
play
the nerd
Dungeons and
here?
Dragons.
Who,
But
who outed themselves, Leah?
I've never played, but that's what it sounds like.
Oh, okay.
but but as a showrunner, I think yes, listening is really important. Listening to your creative team, but also, I found that just like trying to create space for people to do their jobs is really important.
Oh yeah.
Trusting your team. And it's freaking hard, especially once you start rolling and everything seems to come off the wheels. Like, it just, or the wheels come off, whatever. I don't know. I'm bad at talking.
Great at writing. Good at talking. Great at writing, good at talking.
There's just always so much going on, and trusting yourself, trusting your team, it's the hardest thing to do, but it's so important. And also just I feel really passionate about I was a production assistant for a long time. I've seen the worst of being on set. I've seen a lot of the worst, and it's taught me that it's so important to make sure that your crew is being taken care of. And I know on Thai Cave I'm sure there's a million ways we could have done better, but we tried. And to me, that means coming into my job prepared enough so that the crew isn't asked to work untenable hours, that they are in safe environments, that they are being listened to when there's a concern, and that they're not being asked, to work in conditions or timeframes that are just inhumane. Like that's an area that our business still really needs to work on. And so my goal moving forward is to just continue to chip away at the bad habits that I think we've kind of come to as an industry, and hopefully do better than was done by me or done to me, whatever. Again, the talking.
So Angel and I were both COVID officers on a TV show. And one of the things that I took from being a PA there to producing things was I promised myself that I would always buy or offer to buy proper shoes for my PAs, because I did not have the proper shoes my first day and I did not have the money to buy them. And my
That
feet,
is a great goal. Like, I love that.
yep. So my feet suffered. So every set that I've been on that I'm in charge of, I go to my PAs. I'm like, I will buy you shoes. Do you need them? Because the shoes I'm looking at right now on your feet will not last you. They will hurt you.
Yeah, and we
I
walked a
want to do
lot
that.
on that. We walked a lot on that particular show. And
Yeah.
you also kind of have a shoe giving fetish. You give people shoes constantly. She just had a
Don't out
relative
me,
in
man.
town. She just gifted them some shoes. She's gifted me boots before. You gift all of your friends shoes. That's your thing.
I care about feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, but it's true. The
Yeah.
PAs are the first in, the last out, and they are on their feet all the time. And if you're working for an AD that's an ass, I was told very early on that if I ever see you sitting, you'll be fired, which is
Yep.
bullshit.
Yep.
But you're on your feet all the time. I mean, I've never been in better shape than when I was a set PA, but I was also hungry and tired and depressed.
Yeah.
It's a lot
It's a
to
lot.
handle. But shoes
Shoes.
make a huge difference.
They do.
I love this. I'm gonna
Happy
do
feet.
this. Yeah,
Dana, I want you to name names here. Who said they were going to fire you? What production was that on if they saw
I
you
will
sitting?
not.
Angel
Was
does
it-
jujitsu.
Was it in Hawaii? Was it one of the ones in Hawaii?
That's where I started, so you can
All
do
right.
it.
yeah.
All right.
So for our audience that they want to be showrunners one day, there's no one way to do it. But what was your path, your steps?
My path. So I went to film school at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. It was just starting and it was a really small school. It had only been around for a few years at the time, but it was right when Lost was shooting in Hawaii. So I got an internship, I think it was season 4. And, there weren't a lot of students. So it was like I took advantage of every opportunity that they had. And so I started working, or I did that internship. And in that internship, I think we got to go around to, a bunch of different departments. And I was a set PA a couple of days and I worked hard, I guess. I connected with the ADs and then they started bringing me in. I was still in school. So like they'd bring me in as an additional PA throughout the season, which was great because you didn't get paid for the internship, but I got paid on those days. So at the time, even though it was like 14 hours a day, it felt like a lot of money to me. And a couple of those ADs started hiring me. So it was right at the time when a bunch of movies started coming through Hawaii. A bunch of little Lifetime movies, and then The Descendants and Pirates of the Caribbean 4. So I just started working constantly right out of film school. And so I was a set PA and I knew I wanted to write and direct, but I had no idea how to make that transition, especially from Hawaii. So I kind of was like, maybe I'll just be an AD, not just be an AD. Like I really enjoyed being on set and I enjoyed like running base camp. So I was like, being an AD would be a good career path for me, knowing that it wasn't my number one choice. So when Pirates came back to LA, I basically begged them to let me come back with them to finish production as a PA. So I made my move here with a job, which made a big difference back here. because I'm from Long Beach.
What?
That's right. Thank you. And I kept working as a set PA for 1 year. I was like writing shorts, and I was trying to get this really weird short made with some marionette puppets, but I didn't have any money or time. And I got a job as set PA on the pilot of the Newsroom. This is about after a year of working pretty consistently in LA. And I was on set one day, and one of the producers asked me, hey, like, what do you really want to do? And I was like, it was truly the first time I had really said out loud, like, I want to write.
Yes.
I was kind of embarrassed about it. I just didn't feel worthy. I was like, man, I'm not good enough. So I never really talked about it. But she asked me, and I just felt like I just have to say it. And I did. And she's like, okay. And then the next day I had a meeting set with Aaron Sorkin to talk about being a writer's assistant for the season 1. And they offered me the job. And I actually was supposed to go be a PA on the second Christopher Nolan Batman movie. That was my next job right after this pilot. And it was a big job, and it was like with all my friends. And I just remember walking out of the studio and calling the AD, my friend, and being like, so I just got offered this thing. I think I should take it. And he is a writer himself. He was like, yes. Like, why are you even hesitating? Like, go, do the job. And so that was my last PA job. And I started writing as a writer's assistant on the Newsroom, and was promoted to story editor for season 2, and got an agent because of that, and a manager eventually. Jermaine Johnson, 3 Arts, changed my life, and I've been working ever since.
It's amazing.
I love the power of building community is what I'm hearing in
Definitely.
every step that you took.
I've had a lot of people in my life. I've been really fortunate. I've had a lot of people in my life at like really key junctures who have taken a chance on me. And I haven't, I try not to take that for granted. Like, I have tried to take each opportunity as it comes and make sure that I'm doing my best, but also like turning it into something new, like not just letting it ride. But again, I've been really fortunate at different points in my life to just say yes, like to have the courage to say yes. I think sometimes it's scary to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I get scared of trying new things, but I also have this like survival instinct, I think, that I just like can't help myself sometimes. And so when new things come along, I'm just like, okay, I'll try it. I'll try it because I don't know when something else is going to come along, and I might as well just give it a shot. And it's worked out well for me so far.
You've also worked really hard, and you're an extremely intelligent person. So I feel like your unique blend of succeeding thus far has, been in part between your hard work, your intellect, and then this like, yeah, I'll do it attitude and like turning it into something. You're also a lovely human being, and being nice and kind to people in this industry is so rare. Like, you got to roll with the people who are nice and kind to you, right?
I mean, thank you for saying that. Kindness is really important.
Yeah.
The number one thing.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I will like most of my jobs have come from relationships I've built in the previous job. So like with the Newsroom, I got the Narcos job because a writer in the Newsroom was friends with the showrunner, and he was like, you should meet. So we met, and I got that season. And then we all got fired, and they started over for season 2, but that's another story.
No.
No, that's fine. That's the story of my life. And then Designated Survivor, it was that same writer, brought in a couple of us from the Newsroom. And a relationship I had got me into the Lodge 49 room. That, and also one of the characters is based on Herman Ho Ching, which is a football player that we went to high school with. And so I was like, I went into that meeting and I was like, it takes, Lodge 49 takes place in Long Beach. It's so, like, the script so captured, even like, I told the showrunner, I was like, even like the color of this, like I could feel the color of the sky in Long Beach. Like it's very hard to describe, or just like the way the cement feels in Long Beach. I was like, it was so specific. And there was this Samoan character named Herman, and I was like, I just have to tell you, I went to high school with a Samoan guy named Herman Ho Ching who played football, and he was like, yeah, I'm a huge fan. I named the character after Herman, who and I was like, well, I got to get this job right. So anyways. But then, like, from that room, the creator of Kevin Can Fuck Himself was a writer in that room, and we hit it off, and I went on to work for her there. So community is really, really important, and the relationships that you make. And I think, I think having a good attitude and not being an asshole, especially in a writer's room, really helps build those relationships.
Best advice. Don't be an ass. It really is. Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Although I'm sure there's some people out there who are like, I have my moments. I've had my moments.
Yeah, we've all had our moments, but fewer rather than more probably help the career.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I want to circle back to this thing. One of the resolutions that I made this year about being a woman is I'm replacing the word luck with earned. And so I had this interview the other day with the National Theater Institute to go do a program with them. And I caught myself in the interview. I kept saying, I was so lucky this, I was so lucky that. And I was like, you know what, Rachel, woman, I earned it. I earned my spot here. And it like, I could feel like the shift in the interview after that, because self-validation, as hard as it is sometimes necessary when you're pitching yourself in a room. And I've heard you talk about that. I've heard you talk about that in a couple of the interviews that I listened to and read.
I think we do have to take out. I love that, by the way. That is a really good turn. Not lucky, but earned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I often say I was really fortunate to be somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, but you're right. Like we did work to get into those spaces. I've tried to change the language similarly about how I talk about things, especially like in a pitch. I used to say, I think this happens. I think this happens. I think this happens. Even though in my head, I know this is what I'm telling you what's happening. And my manager actually used to kick me under the table every time I said it. And then finally was like, you need to stop, because you're planting the seed of doubt in the executives that, you should be telling them what the story is instead of seeming like you're unsure what the story is. That it, like, be declarative in your thoughts and take ownership of what your thoughts are. And that is really difficult. I find walking into rooms like pitch rooms or even writers' rooms sometimes like so exhausting, because there's so much to navigate as a woman about how you present yourself. It's
politics.
Like the politics of it, and just like walking in and being like, well, I want to take ownership of this space, but sometimes you can tell right away that somebody feels threatened by how much space you take up. And it's like, if it's somebody in a position of power, then how do you reshape yourself to make them comfortable, but also make them confident that you can do the job that you're in there to do? And it's constant navigating, as I'm sure you know. Yeah. But I do think that not apologizing for who you are and what you want and the stories you're there to tell, it does make a huge difference walking into these spaces, even if you are unsure and there are a million different ways that a story could be told. Like, selling is a different beast than writing, and learning the difference between that is has been a really hard lesson for me to learn. But it's really important. Like, pitching and writing are two very different crafts, and they're not really connected at all.
No. So you said something earlier in this interview. You said having Moana out there made it easier for you to pitch. And I know Angel's been working on Red Lighters, and we did that Sundance thing, and it was, if you want to talk to about this, Angel, it was hard to find comps because there's just, it doesn't exist. The comp doesn't exist. You're literally breaking ground, right?
I'm not well read enough to know if a comp exists or not. I'm decently read, but I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. It's a great question.
I
And
don't think
what,
so.
right? Like,
No.
and they say there's no new stories, and I'm like, yeah, well, either you believe that or you don't. But there are new, like, there's color, there's different colors in any archetype, right? So if I'm telling an archetypal story that I'm not aware of the other examples that exist, and I've got some new colors in there, which is cool. And if it is a new archetype, then that's even cooler. But what I've discovered over the process of since I finished that script and talking about it and pitching it is I just got to get into who the characters are and what they're facing and struggling with. It's like this is who this character is, and this is why she's struggling, and this is what she's made of her life, and this is how she can't survive it anymore. And then this happens, and really just digging into who the characters are and then what they face has been the the most successful for me. Felt the most successful and communicative about what the story is. I'm like, oh, it's I just tell them who the person is and how much they're hurting and how messed up their life is. And then it gets more messed up. And then they're trying to do this thing, which is almost impossible. And then this other thing happens. So whatever the archetype or comps or lack of comps for that particular script, it's been really educational, probably more helpful that it's not something as easy as like my Hammond script, which is just Black Rambo. Like that's such an easy, quick pitch. And people respond to, right? Because there's a huge comp out there. We all get it, right? But with Red Lighters, I'm like, oh, I actually have to figure out how to talk about this because there's not a lot of comps, which has been great. It's been really educational.
You know what? I'll do my Mafia TV series about a mixed race woman,
Oh, then that'll be a comp
and then
for
that will be a comp for your thing, and we'll just cycle.
lovely. Well, I'm not gonna give so there's some subject matter in Red Lighters that Dana actually was looking into for a project at one point, and I'm not gonna go into it, but I was like, all right, no one knows about this one area of science that takes place in Red Lighters, but Dana is now researching it for another project potentially. As if someone can just like get this type of science into the zeitgeist, I'd have another comp. So
Yes, I still don't understand it, but I
it's crazy.
think
It's
it's
crazy. Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think your instinct to talk about the characters and what the characters are going through is the exact right way to approach telling the story. Because
Yeah.
the mechanics of what the story is, like, it doesn't have that same emotional resonance as like the universalness of like a woman going through some shit. Like that's what people can
Yeah.
get behind. I think that was like the hardest lesson for me to learn in pitching. Is like I know so much about the story. I want to tell the whole story. I want you to understand the character stuff and the plot stuff and all the stuff
Yep.
that's just
Yeah.
all together. And then it's like people are like, great. What was it about? And you're like, no, I told you.
Yeah. Yeah. I told you have all the information. Why don't you get it?
I in 30 minutes I laid out just every single detail you'd ever need to know. And they're like, yeah, but my brain doesn't process like that. What I want to know is like, why do I care about this?
Yeah.
Why do I care about this person? Oh, this person is, you know, lost people and doesn't know how to deal with grief and is now facing this really hard thing that they have to deal with, or, you know, whatever the character moment is. Like that's what they're tuning in to see when they watch your show. They're there to go on the emotional ride, and the rest is like the fun window dressing.
Yeah.
Now, since you're involved in two pretty big projects right now, are you actively pitching? Are you being pitched by your reps for the next projects? What's your career like? What's your like
I'm owned
workload?
by Disney at the moment, so
Okay, so
I
you're
can't
not.
technically no,
Oh,
but I
that's
do
what that
have.
tattoo on your forehead is.
Yeah, that's exactly. Um, no, so I am a non-writing producer on a project that I set up before this got going. with uh, a lot of other producers. So I'm working on that. There's some wonderful writers telling a story about Hawaii. They're writing the pilot right now, and then I have once I'm done with this animated project, I have another TV project about the science thing that we're talking about. It's actually a procedural, a mental health procedural,
Okay.
medical procedural, about a scientist and psychiatrist out of Stanford named Carl Disseroth, and based on his story, he wrote a book called Projections, which talks about the science that we're talking about briefly. A really, really great book. But basically, once I'm done here, I'll probably go off and write that pilot. And I also have a couple of other projects in development that I was supposed to pitch right before the strike, but we pulled the pitches back because it didn't seem like the right time to ask people for a bunch of money right before we went on strike. So I will hopefully be pitching those again.
Okay.
Or for the first time when this is over. But my goal really in this new year, I also have a movie I'm trying to write, but my immediate goal is I'd really like to see these TV projects get moving, and I want to direct. That's my goal for the next year and a half. So we'll see.
Do you have any interest in getting in front of the camera again?
Again, Angel, what do you mean?
Well, so for those of you who don't know, Dana was my ingenue, the star in my first student film ever. Film
I was
called
still in high school.
June Deception. You were in high school, yeah. It was my first year at
Wow.
Long Beach Community College, and I took a couple film courses, and for one of them, they said you have to do a short film on Super 8, and I came up with a twisted horror thriller type deal where we think a guy is stalking his female neighbor. We a bunch of creepy shots of him creeping on her and watching her do all this stuff, and then he breaks into her house. But as he's breaking into her house, he falls and breaks his neck. And it turns out that she comes home and finds him, and then the big reveal is that she's been stalking him because we see all the pictures of him up on her wall.
I totally forgot that.
She's the creep.
Awesome.
And Dana was my star because
I was your creep.
Yeah, she was my creep. I saw her in a musical at school, and I was like, she's great. She's such a good actress. I got to put her in my movie.
I think it wasn't a musical because you wouldn't have thought I was great. I cannot carry a tune to save my life. I think you saw me. I was Roxy in the play of Chicago.
That's right.
Not the musical.
So so you started your career being directed by me. Look at this.
Yes, I know. No, I would rather die than get in front of the camera again.
I just found the actual film canister with that film the other day.
We need to
Really?
watch it.
I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. It's in my
Oh
garage.
my
I don't know if it's survived because it's literally 20-something years old, but I've got it.
If
Oh my
only you knew a
gosh.
projectionist.
I don't know that I saw it.
You didn't. You wouldn't come to the screening. And it was
Oh,
the
that's-
best one.
Aw.
Everybody else did the typical student. I'm going to toot my own horn for a second. Everybody else did the typical student film where it's a leaf blowing in the wind and someone looking off at a sunset and there's no plot. Mine had a plot. Mine had a twist. It had an ending. It was oh, it was great. You missed it.
I just remember, was it your bedroom we were shooting in or someone's bedroom? Just being
It was
it
Ray's.
was
Ray's.
Ray's.
One of our buddies, Ray, who was he's a little bit older than me. So he was an adult at the time. He rented a house in a neighborhood in Long Beach. I was like, oh, he'll let us use his house and we can shoot at his
My
house.
ex-boyfriend's brother.
That's right. You were dating his brother. I forgot about Dominic. Oh man.
Whew, that was a long time ago. No, I can't believe I was ever in front of any camera.
Well, you were
It's
great
not-
at the time.
Not where I belong.
You're a
but thank
natural
you.
talent. Natural
Yeah,
talent.
thanks.
I'm gonna get a Super 8 projector and I'm gonna play that.
Okay, I'll watch it if you do
Okay,
it.
we'll have a screening one night. I'll get it transferred to digital. We'll screen it in a real theater.
Oh my gosh.
I'll ask.
Yeah, we can screen it at the Vista. Leah just She started working as a projectionist over at the
Oh,
Visitor.
awesome.
Yeah.
Because did it just reopen?
It
Wait,
did.
is it the
Yeah.
Vis?
Tarantino did a bunch of renovations to it and
That's
it
cool.
reopened. Yeah.
Well, sounds like you've
Um,
got a really busy next couple of years at the very least, which has got to feel great as a writer in Hollywood, you know, to be busy, to have like projects, to be owned by Disney for a short period of time for all that's good for and all that, you know, is difficult.
yeah,
It's got to be, you know, a great feeling.
it it is. I have had a really great run, and I'm really thankful for it because I know how hard it is to get work and to keep working. Um, I I've really loved how different all the projects I've been fortunate enough to work on. Like I feel like early on I was told I had to make choices about which shows I wanted to work on, and because I would get pigeonholed really quickly.
Mm.
And I just refused to believe that. And I think because of that, I just made different choices. And like I've worked in comedy, I worked in drama, I've worked in procedural, like all kinds of different things. And that has really helped me figure out what I like and what I want to do next. And so um, I'm really thankful for all this different work I've had. And now I have been in Disneyland for a while, and I'm feeling really ready to do something totally different and like get a little weird again. When I first started writing, I
Yes.
wanted to write like weird little indie movies, and I miss kind of that creative freedom to try something different and to be bold. And so I'm hopeful that the work I'm doing now will help me have the space to go do something new and fresh and different. And I would say to your listeners, I think part of the reason why I was able to do that is someone early on said to me, like when I got my first writing job, to just not change my lifestyle when you start making a WGA salary, to just really be mindful of money and save it, because that is what will buy you your creative freedom. And I took that to heart. Like those first couple of jobs, I really worked hard to make sure I was saving so that I didn't have to say yes to everything. Like so that I could like pick what I wanted, and that made a huge difference because I didn't have any support, financial support from anyone else. Like I was 100% supporting like myself and my family. Um, well, and my husband, who's a teacher, so I guess technically,
Yeah,
but
but
he's a
teachers don't get
teacher.
paid
He's
anything.
a teacher.
So
Yeah, yeah. So, um, and an excellent teacher, but a teacher. And that really made a difference. Like that's the reason why I was able to pick the jobs that I chose. It was also the reason why I was able to take time to have a kid, which is not something that women really get to do. You feel
Mhm.
like you have to keep taking work and keep working through all these things. And like, I was careful about how I planned uh, my life, and to the best of my ability. There's a lot of variables, but I do recommend, like, when you get your first writing job and those WGA paychecks come in, which are crazy, especially in the beginning. When if you go from being a PA to a story editor, I think the difference in your weekly pay is something like $5,000. That's that's a huge,
oh,
huge, huge uptick in your finance, and like would understand the impulse to like go buy a house or go buy a fancy car, but like think about what you want your future to look like and how you want to play this long game, because this is a long game in this business. And so, um, if what you want is just to get on a procedural and write the same thing, for 10 years, then that's one path. But if what you want is to have some like creative diversity and to really curate your future. I think paying attention to the money is a path that you should follow. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's really helped me and allowed me, I think, hopefully, to kind of do what I want to do next.
Made a ton of
Direct
sense.
a weird indie.
Yeah. I can't wait to see the weird indie.
An actor friend of mine, it's his idea, and it's like a modern day take on Taxi Driver.
Can I play a creeper in your first directorial project?
1,000%.
Great, I'm there for you. Well, we're almost out of time. Leah, do you got anything else you want to ask?
I have so many things to ask that we're inviting you for season 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or Leah, we could just have coffee sometime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll come back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really great, Dana. It's such a treat to get to see you, and whenever I get to see you, but to have you on the podcast is really, really special. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I'm looking forward to seeing Moana, the live action adaptation, and then having you back on for season 3.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So cheers from Hollywood.
Cheers from Hollywood.
If you're on the fence about subscribing, know that a portion of all subscription fees go toward the nonprofit Young Storytellers, raising voices one story at a time.